describe Prairie Barnwood in like 3 words, what would it be?
A lot of work. It was a dream.
How did it all come about?
So I started refinishing furniture. I got kind of interested in that, and so my dad took me to an auction, and we would buy, 1920s, 1930s furniture and refinish it, and then I would put it in my mom's store and sell it. I started in a 10 by 10 garden shed in our backyard, but as I was doing it, I was getting known for refinishing antiques, so people started bringing me their antiques, which led into restoration. I really enjoy building furniture the way it was built 100 years ago, and I love building furniture that someday is going to have a story to it.
That takes it back all the way, 25 years?
25 years ago, yeah.
When you started Prairie Barnwood, did you imagine that it would be family owned?
No, when I started this, I couldn't see past my nose. I think that also blows my mind that you believe in us enough to almost partner with us.
Hi, I'm Natalya.
And I'm Blayne.
And this is Behind the Barnwood. I guess that leads us into the values that guide our business.
Right.
And we talk a lot about the craftsmanship. We craft every single piece of furniture. Like every single one of the people that you mentioned earlier touch the piece of furniture.
Yeah.
Everyone crafts it.
Yeah.
And sustainability has been really big.
Right.
We started primarily with Barnwood.
With Barnwood,
yeah.
yeah.
I want to touch on how we started.
Right.
And where we are today with our product.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, in 2009, it was August, and so we had gotten slow. So what you do when you get slow is you go on vacation. And so we had taken you 3 kids, you were young at the time, and Tara and I, and we drove to some family's house in southern Ontario. And so we left here in Morden, Manitoba, southern Manitoba, and we started driving to Ontario. And so we were driving through Michigan and started in Minnesota and Wisconsin and Michigan and so on. And as we were driving, I remember we were going through Wisconsin, and you kids were asleep, and Tara was asleep, or maybe you guys were watching videos, I don't know, but I just kind of had this thought, like I seen these old barns as we're driving through the countryside, and this thought kind of came to my head, you should rip down a barn. And as that kind of thought came, I'm like talking to myself, I'm like, self, what would I do with a barn? and yeah, I was thinking about the antiques that I had restored and built and the old wood and looking at these old barns and I love the stories that came with the antiques. And I think what really struck me with the Barnwood is it already has 100 or 200 year story before we even start with it. So we got to a family's house in southern Ontario, and I put an ad in, I think it was called Pembina Valley Online in southern Manitoba here, I don't remember, but it was a classified ad that I could post on there that I would rip down a barn. And so I had a few inquiries when we were in Ontario on vacation still, and the one that I went and looked at was in a town of, I think it's called Rosetown. It's like 2 miles from the North Dakota border. And so went and looked at it, and it was such an old barn that it was attached to a house. And the customer wanted the barn taken off, but they were going to keep the house. So, yeah, I was like, I'll take this barn down. And so we did a trade where I'd rip the barn down and he'd get it cleaned up, and it was kind of win-win for both of us. So I took my employee at the time, Nathan, and we'd start going out there during the days and ripping a barn down. So in September and October, we were ripping this barn down, and I remember we were pushing some of the wood to the side, and Nathan's like, what do we keep? I'm like, I have no idea. He's like, what are we even going to do with this? I'm like, I have no idea, Nathan. And one day we were out there working, and I remember some of the people from the village we were ripping this barn down in came and stood at the end of the road, and they were like laughing and pointing at us for ripping this barn down. And so one evening, we took loads of wood back to the shop in the evenings, and then in the mornings we'd go back to the barn site. So the one evening we brought some wood home, and it must have been raining or something that next day because I built a little hall table. And it's actually, you can't see in this video, but it's here in our house and it's just sitting right against the wall there. I still have it. And I built it with a mission style look, so very clean and straight. I built it with 100-year-old joinery, so like mortise and tenon joints and stuff like that. And sanded and finished it. And my landlord at the time came in and he looked at it. He's like, that thing's awesome. And he said, you should build a dining table. So then the next evening, after ripping barns down, I went back to the workshop and built like a timber frame dining table. And the landlord looked at that and he was like, this is incredible. Like, I want to buy this. So he actually bought it. And he's like, you need to build a catalog. So I started building pieces and making a catalog and put it on Kijiji and try and get the word out there. And I think one of the most unique things about barnwood that really caught my attention, and it actually chokes me up, is that the wood is living and it's a piece of our Canadian history, and that barnwood or wood even in general reminds me so much of us as people, that we go through life and we get bruised and banged up and scarred, and we have baggage, and we go through divorces, and we have loss, and we have relationships that fall apart, and disappointments, and they cause nail holes in us, and they cause cracks and warps and twists and weathering. And I think that's something that just blew me away with barnwood, is that it is so much like us as people, that it's been weathered and so on. But I think what really is encouraging for me is that it's those bumps and bruises and nail holes that is actually what's so beautiful about the wood. So that's how we built all of our furniture. We built it enhancing the characteristics of the barn. So if there was a crack, we'd leave it. If there was a nail hole, we would just sand around it and kind of make it pop out. Or a knot, we would actually sand around the knot, and the knot would become a focal point of that piece. And I remember we would rip down barns and there would be corral fences where animals had like rubbed their necks on for 50 years. And so we would just build furniture with that nook or crook in the piece and leave it. And so when you look at our pieces of furniture that we built in the beginning, there was a lot of character in them, a lot of art, really. And as the company's evolved and people hear about us and what we do, we still build pieces like that. We still build furniture. If you want a piece of authentic barnwood, we still rip down barns in southern Ontario now, and they're mid to late 1800s. We work with old colony Mennonites, so when I go out there, you can't phone them, so they're almost like the Amish. They have horses and buggies, and rip the barns down with horses and buggies and hand tools, and so it's pretty beautiful, actually, how quaint and quiet and old it is. And then we bring the wood back here to our shop in Manitoba. We kiln dry it, and we will craft your pieces out of it. Or if you want the same look of furniture, but people don't like kind of that weathered knot hole, like this just explains it so well. The gray wood here is weatherboard off of a barn, and this is be the late 1800s, and then this mantle is like a main structural beam, and you can see the cracks and stuff. So if you like that, you would go with barnwood. If you like the look, but you don't necessarily want the large cracks and large nail holes and stuff, then we do a lot with new wood. And we work a lot with pine, because the barnwood is pine and spruce and cedar and hemlock and fir. And if you want, like lots of times we'll build people's furniture where the base is barnwood, but the tabletop is new. Then you don't have to vacuum your table. And so, yeah, it's the pine just works really well. But we build now with all types of new wood and rustic wood. And so when people are buying their pieces, you can actually customize what kind of wood you want, the character of it, the finish. So there's a lot of cool customizations inside of kind of our standard pieces to make it unique.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's kind of how we started with Barnwood. Yeah. I remember one fellow worked with me, his name was Tim, and he helped me rip down barns here in Manitoba. So Manitoba, I physically myself ripped down barns for 5 years. And I think we ripped down, we were 4 to 5 barns a year is the amount of wood we would go through. And with barnwood, once you've ripped it down, you have to denail it, you have to stack it, you actually have to kiln dry it, because lots of times there's bugs in the wood and it still does need to be dried. And so one of my friends at the time, Tim, he was helping me rip down some barns. And it was funny because he went home that night and he says to his wife, Blayne says we're like barns. And his wife was like, what? And he says, well, yeah, we have nail holes and knot holes and twists and cups, and we've got weathering and he's like, Blayne thinks that us as people are just like barns. I think it's kind of interesting because as humans, we don't celebrate the victories of our challenges. We don't celebrate like the hurts and pains and hardships of life. When you overcome them, it's actually a celebration. We usually try and hide the baggage or hide the pain of the loss or hide the wear of time with wrinkles or gray hair. And I think for me, one of my values is that should be celebrated. Is who you are, and for me, it just kind of comes out with wood. Yeah. Yeah, I like the imperfections. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is like creating art.
Yeah, it is.
And I think that's what's so cool about it, the amount of hands that touch each piece and get to craft each piece is like everybody that works with us is passionate about what we do and our brand. Right. And for everybody that we, like all of our customers, our past customers and stuff, everybody just like comments on the passion behind each piece. Right. And I think that it can get so lost in what we do, and sometimes it becomes just a job, but it really is a unique place to work because it is so like special in that way that it's an art form, like we're creating like a sculpture.
Yeah. It's pretty wild because we actually still have turn of the century hand planes. Like we use them. Yeah. It's not we don't have CNC routers, we don't have, it's not a massive factory. All of the people that work there kind of, everybody they have their specialty, but then everybody lends a hand in different areas. Every piece is, the wood is hand sorted, it's hand picked, it's looked at, and we plane it and joint it to work with the wood. We're not manipulating the wood, but we're working with the wood and with the woes and wows of the piece, and even in sanding, like the pieces are hand sanded, and in our assembly it's done by hand. Each hole is drilled with a drill, and every dowel is like, we drill the hole, we clean it out. They actually bore it out with a dowel and they pull out the dust and blow it out, and then they squeeze the glue in, and then you hand tap in a dowel and you wipe it off. So anytime you see a piece of our furniture and there's a little dowel, that dowel has been drilled, bored out and cleaned, put glue in, hand tap a dowel in, and it's been wiped off. And so, like, it cannot get any more handmade than a piece of Prairie Barnwood furniture. Yeah. Even for people, when you have a bespoke or a commission piece built, like, you're part of every process. Like, probably, maybe I should get ahead with the times, but I still pencil draw my drawings.
Yeah.
Like, once I've talked to somebody and they want a piece of furniture, I'll actually just take and draw the piece out on a piece of paper and a pencil, and work on the dimensions and the look and the how you want it to function and what you want it to facilitate. And then from there, once we've chosen samples and colors and texture and all that kind of stuff, then it goes to Devin, and he does a CAD drawing and a material list. So every part from the piece of furniture has a list of what we need to cut, and then it goes back to Miles, who picks every single board and planes it and joints it and glues it, and then it goes back into either Devin or Sean, and Jeffrey and Joe actually have also helped with assembly, and Miles can do assembly, and they assemble the piece, and then it's moved to our sanding where Norma and Jeffrey and Joe will sand the piece, and then we stain and clear coat it, and then it comes back to the shop, and then we assemble it all. Take pictures of it, send them to the customer, and crate it or wrap it for delivery or pickup or shipping, and then send you pictures and ship it off. So even the crates are handmade. We don't even order our own crates. We actually take the wood and we mill our own wood for our crates, and we build each crate by hand. So yeah, it's handmade furniture.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like going to the store and buying Wonder Bread or going to the bakery and buying bread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, you're either going to buy mass-produced sliced bread or go and buy a handcrafted loaf of bread. Mm-hmm. And so when you come to us, you're getting a baker's loaf.
Yeah, I guess it's a good way, a good parallel. With that being said, thank you so much for watching, tuning in. Stay tuned for more episodes we'll be launching.
Yeah.
You have anything more to add?
I got nothing. I'm all worded out.